everybody. Welcome back to the lounge. This is episode 4 of it's episode 4 of the lounge. And um in this episode, if you were here last episode, things got a little bit, just a little bit, out of whack, a little bit crazy. But we're gonna get past that. We're gonna get past that. We had to end the stream early last night, but we're gonna get past that, you know what I'm saying, man? We're gonna get past it, and we're gonna turn up the stream. It's just me right now. I don't know if I'm gonna have anybody hop on or not, but it's just me right now. And reason it's really just me right now is because, um, I'm here to talk about, one, I don't want any distractions, and two, I don't want, anybody, um, I don't really want any distractions and all of that stuff. And what we hear about is we're here to talk about the NBA, my predictions for this up and coming NBA season. And so, um, as you read in the description, we're gonna be talking about you know, who I predict is gonna make the playoffs, um, what each team's record will be, who's going to make it to the finals, and who is going to be crowned NBA champions. And so, um, yeah, let's just get right into it. First, we're going to discuss, um, who I think will make the playoffs. First of all, that's what we are going to discuss. Now, we're going to start with the East, with the Eastern Conference. Um, I'm not gonna name any seeding orders or anything like that. I'm just gonna name the 8 teams that I think will make it to the Eastern Conference playoffs. The 8 teams I have making the Eastern Conference Finals currently are the Boston Celtics, the Miami Heat, the Toronto Raptors, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Philadelphia 76ers, the Brooklyn Nets, the um, the Atlanta Hawks, and the Indiana Pacers. Now, I know you guys may be like, where are the Washington Wizards? Well, actually, I'm gonna replace the honestly, to me, the Raptors and the Wizards are interchangeable. It just depends on how you look at everything. Because while the Raptors did lose Serge Ibaka this year, um, I feel like they're still a good enough team. Well, they lost Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol. I feel like they might can fill that void that they may have at the center position. It all depends on if they trade for a center or anything like that. But honestly, you could interchange the Wizards or the Toronto Raptors. But that's who I have making it in the East. Who I have making it in the West are the Los Angeles Lakers, the Golden State Warriors, the Los Angeles Clippers, the Houston Rockets, the Dallas Mavericks, the Utah Jazz, the Phoenix Suns, and the man, it's a tough one, and the Denver Nuggets. And so the dynamic teams are Lakers, Warriors, Clippers, Mavericks, um, not the Spurs, the Nuggets, the Jazz, the man, it's tough. The Trailblazers, and honestly, that A spot is gonna be a fight, but I think it's gonna be between the Grizzlies, the Pelicans, and and really that's just about it. And I think the Pelicans, even though the Grizzlies are my favorite team, I think the Pelicans have just a little bit more talent, and the Houston Rockets obviously, and I feel like the Pelicans just have a little bit more talent. Now, predicting each team's record, well, as you guys know, it's going to be a 72 game regular season because of the coronavirus and all of that stuff, and so the season's not starting on time. It's going to be a 72 game regular season. Now, we're going to start with the Eastern Conference and all of the teams' records, starting with the Atlanta Hawks. Since it is 72 games, I think the Hawks are going to be a team that goes 39 and 33. That is my prediction for the Atlanta Hawks, because looking at their situation It's going to be looking like their starting lineup is going to be Trae Young, Bogdanovich, DeAndre Hunter, John Collins, and Clint Capella. Now, to me, that's a playoff starting five. They have a good mix of offense and defense. Even though that backcourt will have a bit of a defensive problem, the primary wing stopper will obviously be DeAndre Hunter, and then Clint Capella is going to lock things down in the paint. So, and then Trae Young is obviously going to be the offensive leader. He's going to be the playmaker. Bogdanovich, he can create his own shot and play off the ball. DeAndre Hunter, his offensive game is not too developed yet, but he can just but as his game starts to develop, he's pretty athletic, pretty fast, pretty strong, and so I feel like he can get some good looks in the paint based off of that. John Collins, he can either play inside the paint or spread the floor, which having Clint Capella out there on the floor is gonna force him to spread the floor more often than he is in the paint. And then Clint Capella, obviously he's gonna be the main one down low, catching lobs and running pick and rolls and all of that stuff. So. And then off the bench, they now have Rajon Rondo, they have Danilo Gallinari, they um, have Cam Reddish, they have, all of these players that can help them uh, push towards making the playoffs and the Eastern Conference. I really can't tell if the Eastern Conference got stronger or weaker this based off of last season. The Eastern Conference. It, Yeah, man, I can't really decide on if I think they got stronger or weaker. And so, you know, it's tough. It's really tough. Um, Honestly, but I think the Hawks, they're going to have a 39 and a 33 record. Next, on to the Boston Celtics. Now, obviously, the Boston Celtics, they lost Gordon Hayward, which I wouldn't say is necessarily just bad for them. You know what I'm saying? Like, one, they got off his terrible contract. They did lose Enes Kanter, so they did lose some of the offensive firepower they had at as the big man. But honestly, they picked up Tristan Thompson, which a defensive minded, rebounding minded center is to me what they needed because while Daniel Tice, he's a good center all around, and he's a good energy guy. I feel like Tristan Thompson is more established. He's more proven, and so he's an NBA champion and everything like that. And so, I meant to start this game for y'all because y'all are supposed to be watching this gameplay. My bad for that. But anyway, yeah. I feel like Tristan Thompson's more proven than Daniel Tice is. Just looking at the Celtics roster, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they're both going to have more room to get more involved into the offense and to develop their games even further than they already have with the loss of Gordon Hayward. And then they brought in Jeff Teague this offseason, and like I said, brought in Tristan Thompson to be some more firepower off the bench. They still have Kemba Walker, Marcus Smart, and they have Robert Williams coming that's going to be coming off the bench and all of that stuff. And so honestly, this Celtics team, their record for me is going to be 45 and 27. I feel like the Celtics, and maybe they could push for 50 wins. Maybe the Celtics could push for 50 wins, but maybe they could go 50 and 22 or 51 and 21 or something like that. But right now, I have their record at 45 and 27. Next team moving on in the Eastern Conference. Um, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, obviously, the Cleveland Cavaliers are in the middle of a rebuild right now, so I'm not really expecting too much from them. I have their record being a clean 19 and 53. Because the Cavs, they are rebuilding right now, so they don't really have anything. They don't really have any reason to win. They need to keep acquiring picks. They need to trade First of all, they need to trade Kevin Love. That's first of all, and Andre Drummond. They need to trade both Kevin Love and Andre Drummond because there are two players that Andre Drummond is probably about to hit the middle of his prime, and he does not need to spend his prime on a rebuilding Cavs team. So he needs to be on a team where he is, primed to help them contend for a championship. So they need to trade Kevin Love and Andre Drummond. But right now, all I see the Cavs being is 19 and 53. Moving on, the next team we have is the Charlotte Hornets. Now, the Charlotte Hornets, they picked up LaMelo Ball in the draft, which was kind of questionable to me considering they already had Terry Rozier and Devontae Graham developed last season into being an 18 and 7 assist guy. And so I don't necessarily know why they picked up LaMelo Ball in the draft. Maybe they want to, run a bunch of 2 point guard lineups or something like that. But to me, honestly, the Hornets really aren't going anywhere anytime soon. They did shed Nick Batum's bad contract, but they signed Gordon Hayward to a bad contract, to a max contract, a 4-year, $120 million contract, which was questionable to me because Gordon Hayward, one, did not prove that he was worth a 4-year, $120 million contract, but two, they don't necessarily need to pick up Gordon Hayward on that sizable of a contract because they are in rebuilding mode, just like the Cavs. So, but I mean, hey, maybe Gordon Hayward can turn back into his Utah Jazz self, and he can lead them to a decent amount of wins, but not anywhere close to the amount of wins they need to make the playoffs, even in the Eastern Conference. So I have the Hornets going 24 and 48. That is my record for the Charlotte Hornets. They're going to go 24 and 48. Next thing we have up is the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, obviously, the Bucks, they didn't necessarily get better or worse than they were last year, which is a problem, especially considering that Giannis Antetokounmpo will be a free agent next off season. And they did upgrade at the point guard position. Um, they got they got Drew Holiday in exchange for Eric Bledsoe, but they lost guys like Dante DiVincenzo in the process of trading for Drew Holiday, and they also missed out on Bogdan Bogdanovic because he did not agree to the sign and trade that they prompted earlier in the offseason. So really, the Bucks starting five is still going to be and they lost Wesley Matthews because the Lakers picked him up, and so that they lost some of the defense and shooting ability that he provided, and so the Bucks really, with having Drew Holiday over Eric Bledsoe is good, but they still lost valuable assets that were good for the team in the process. So um, just looking at this Bucks roster, to me, this Bucks. Well, actually, they did keep Dante DiVincenzo. I thought they lost him, but um, just looking at this Bucks roster, um, to be honest with you, I don't really think the Bucks are gonna be more. They may. I feel like the Bucks are gonna go 51 and 21. That's the record I have for the Milwaukee Bucks. I just don't see the Bucks getting more than 55 wins or something like that. I don't see them reaching the 60 win mark unless Giannis has developed his game and developed a decent jump shot and all of that stuff and fixed his shooting mechanics and all of that stuff. I just really don't see the Bucks reaching over 51 wins. The next thing we have in the Eastern Conference is not an exciting one, being the New York Knicks. As we all know, the Knicks are in full rebuild mode. They still have Julius Randle. They have a confusing point guard situation. They not only have Frank Ntilikina and Dennis Smith Jr., but they also have Austin Rivers, and which makes no sense because why would you pick up Austin Rivers when you already have 2 point guards who you are trying to develop? I really don't know what the Knicks are doing, but I feel like the Knicks are going to go 15 and 57, or maybe even 10 and 62. It just all depends. And so the Knicks are not going anywhere anytime soon in terms of making a playoff push. The next thing we have on the list is the Philadelphia 76ers. And as we know, with the Philadelphia 76ers, they have gotten rid of Al Horford and his terrible contract, which I don't know how they managed to do that because to me, if I were a general manager, I would not dare trade for Al Horford's contract. But hey, the Thunder traded for it. And so now the 76ers don't have one less bad contract to worry about. Um, just looking at this Mavericks team, they added Dwight Howard to be the backup to Joel Embiid, which he has shown he can be a role-playing center now, as he did last year with the Los Angeles Lakers. And so they still have Ben Simmons, they still have Embiid, they still have Tobias Harris. They picked up Seth Curry to get some shooting. They still have Shake Milton, they still have Furkan Korkmaz. So um, their shooting has definitely gotten better. They may have gotten a little bit worse defensively because they lost Josh Richardson. But I mean, to me, they needed more shooting than they need defense. Than they needed defense because Ben Simmons is the perimeter primary stopper, and Joel Embiid obviously is going to shut things down in the paint when he either one isn't injured or two isn't in a bad mood. So I can see the Sixers team going something like 43 and 29. 43 and 29. I know that's really a lot of games for them to lose in this season, but the 76ers really just that the Ben Simmons Joel Embiid combination is not enough to convince me that the Sixers are going to be an elite team or a championship contender just because as we've seen in the past couple of years that duo clearly does not work. The next thing we have in the Eastern Conference is the Brooklyn Nets. Now obviously the Brooklyn Nets they have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving both coming back from injury, along with still having Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, Joe Harris, Spencer Dinwiddie, DeAndre Jordan, Torian Prince. They picked up Jeff Green, Landry Shamet, and all of those guys. So, but the most eye-opening thing right now is the Nets coaching staff. Obviously, the Nets hired Steve Nash as their head coach, but they picked up assistant coaches that are kind of questionable in Amari Stoudemire and Mike D'Antoni. And obviously, as we all know, Mike D'Antoni was Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire's coach in those early 2000s Phoenix Suns teams that ran that 7 seconds or less offense that was so unorthodox that it never worked. So putting a team like with a team like that, and having coaches like that, the Nets they may be. It's kind of tough to determine their record, but right now I have the Nets going 49 and 23 because of just their weird coaching. Well, just their questionable coaching, decisions and all of that, and it's just I I can't go too high on the Nets just solely based off their coaching. If they had more convincing coaching, then maybe I would be higher on them. But right now I still have the Nets going 49 and 23. The next team I have in the Eastern Conference is the Detroit Pistons. Now, obviously, the Detroit Pistons desperately need to trade Blake Griffin to a championship contender and get some first-round picks or get some valuable assets or get some valuable young assets in return because, one, Blake Griffin does not need to be there and they need to trade Derrick Rose as well because, one, neither one of them need to be there because they are rebuilding, and two, they don't need a guy like Blake Griffin who's on an overinflated contract on a team that is rebuilding. So with the Pistons, right now, if they do keep Derrick Rose and Blake Griffin, which I would hope they didn't, but if they do for the entirety of the season, I have the Pistons going 25 and 47. Because to me, the Pistons, they're not a whole because Blake Griffin and Derrick Rose are good enough players to drag them to a decent amount of wins, maybe even 30 wins. Maybe they even go 30 and 42 or something like that. But right now, I'll just keep them at 25 and 47. But because of Blake Griffin and Derrick Rose, but right now, the Pistons are just in turmoil, man. The next team I have in the Eastern Conference is the Washington Wizards, who, as we all know, just traded for Russell Westbrook. Um, right now, just based off them having Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal alone, I could see this Wizards team going something like 37 and 35, or they could go something like 40 and 32 or something like that. Because while this team really necessarily isn't the greatest outside of their two star players in Westbrook and Beal, Westbrook and Beal are good enough to where they can, as we've seen in the past, well, with Russell Westbrook at least, they can drag them to a decent record and to a playoff push. They did draft Cassius Winston. They picked up Robin Lopez. They re-signed Davis Bertans. They still have Thomas Bryant and all of those guys. So um, I can see the Wizards going something like 40 and 32. That's my official record for them, 40 and 32, uh, and making the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. The next team I have in the Eastern Conference is the Indiana Pacers. And as we all know, reports came out that Victor Oladipo wants out, but I don't necessarily know if they're too keen on trading him. But um, with this roster they have right now, they still have Oladipo, who can hopefully get back to his All-Star and All-Defensive Team form. They have Sabonis, who's still rising and emerging. They have T.J. Warren still, Miles Turner, Malcolm Brogdon, Justin Holiday, Doug McDermott, and all of those guys. And so, hopefully, the Pacers they can feel they can do pretty decent. I feel like the Pacers are going to be a team who goes 38 and 34. Not horrible, kind of just a middling team, but hey, they could surprise me. So that's why I have the Pacers going. And the last team I have in the Eastern Conference is the Orlando Magic. And the Orlando Magic, as they've shown us in the past 2 years, people think the Magic are going nowhere, when in reality they've been, granted they've been the 7th and 8th seed in the playoffs, they still made the playoffs, and they really didn't make any major changes to their roster. And so just based off of that, just based off of them not making really any significant changes to their roster, I feel like the Magic are going to go something like 36 and 36 or 37 and 35 or something like that, and barely sneaking into the playoffs. So that's what I have the Magic going right now. Now on to the Western Conference, and the first team I'm going to go through is the Los Angeles Lakers, who obviously got way better than they were last season. Now, granted, they did lose Rajon Rondo. Um, they replaced him with Dennis Schroeder. They picked up Wesley Matthews. Obviously, Montrezl Harrell. They picked up Marc Gasol. And so, just looking at the lineup, the starting lineup most likely will consist of Dennis Schroeder, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, LeBron, AD, and Marc Gasol. And off the bench, they're gonna have Alex Caruso, KCP, Kyle Kuzma, Markieff Morris, and Montrezl Harrell. And that is going to come for a dangerous lineup, or they may even put Anthony Davis at the center position and put one of either Markieff Morris or Montrezl Harrell in Marc Gasol's starting spot, so Gasol can be the defensive anchor coming off the bench. But either way, I can see the Lakers going something like 59 and 13, or maybe even reaching 60 wins and going 60 and 12. And so, I know that's a pretty high ceiling. That's the highest record so far. But considering the additions they made this offseason, and considering they still do have LeBron James and Anthony Davis when Anthony Davis resigns, like he most likely will, I could see this team going like something like 59 and 13 or 60 and 12. The next team I have is the Golden State Warriors, and the Golden State Warriors are in a very unfortunate situation. They have lost Klay Thompson for the second straight season due to a Achilles injury, but they still have a decent team around them. They really have a pretty good team. Their starting lineup is most likely going to be Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, Kelly Oubre, Draymond Green, and James Wiseman, who they just drafted. And then off the bench, they still have guys like Kevin Looney, Marquise Chris, Jordan Poole, Eric Pascal, and all of those guys. So I could definitely see. And they also drafted Nico Mannion, who I feel like is going to in the second round. I believe he was picked like 40th overall or something. And I believe he's going to be a sleeper from this year's draft. I feel like he's going to be a sleeper that a lot of teams passed up on. That I thought he was going to get drafted earlier, but yeah, man, he can be the backup to Steph Curry, and Steph Curry can guide him into being a really good point guard in this league. And so they're gonna have him off the bench, and all of those guys. They also picked up Kent Bazemore this offseason to provide some wing defense and some shooting. And so, yeah, man, I have this Warriors team going something like 43 and 19, or not 19, 43 and 29, or something like 45 and 27, just because they did lose Klay Thompson, which is big for this team, because if Klay Thompson was healthy, a lot of people had this team coming out of the West, or getting at least to the Western Conference Finals. But now that they've lost Klay Thompson and essentially replaced him with Kelly Oubre, granted Kelly Oubre is a great player. He does not provide the defensive ability that Klay Thompson provides. So I have this Warriors team going something like 45-27. I forgot to talk about the Miami Heat from the Eastern Conference, and or did I talk about the Raptors? I'm pretty sure I did not talk about the Raptors. I skipped a couple teams in the Eastern Conference, but we'll get back to them at the end. The next team I have in the Western Conference is the Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets, obviously, they traded for John Wall, but obviously James Harden wants out. James Harden wants out. He does not want to be in Houston anymore, and so yeah, it's kind of a weird situation. But just looking at the roster now, if they picked up DeMarcus Cousins in this offseason along with John Wall, so if they still have this team now with John Wall and James Harden being the backcourt, and then they have guys like Daniel House, PJ Tucker, Eric Gordon, DeMarcus Cousins surrounding that star backcourt, and they also have DeMar Carroll still. Um, this Rockets team is gonna go something maybe like around the same record as the Warriors. I'd say about 45-27 or something like 46-26. I just because they have a new coach, they have a new general manager, and so I really don't know how that offense is going to be run, and I don't know if James Harden is going to agree with what the new coach wants to do on offense. So I have this Rockets team either going 45-27 or 46-26. Next team I have in the Western Conference is the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, obviously, the Los Angeles Clippers did not fill the void that they have at point guard in terms of, well, in just playmaking in general by picking up a true playmaker, which is still going to hold them back over the course of the regular season and the playoffs. But it they still really don't have a true playmaker on the team, but they did pick up Serge Ibaka. They picked up Nicholas Batum, and Serge Ibaka is really the big man they needed. That can actually defend people consistently and also provide some floor spacing on offense, which is two things Montrezl Harrell and Zubac cannot do. And so picking up Serge Ibaka was huge for them, but they still have a obvious problem with having a lack of playmaking. But just based off of having Kawhi Leonard and Paul George still, along with Patrick Beverly and Lou Will and Marcus Morris and Reggie Jackson, and like I said, Batum, and they picked up Luke Kennard this offseason and picking up Serge Ibaka. Granted their lack of playmaking, I still feel like the Clippers can go something like 50-22 or something to the tune of 49-23. The next team I have in the Western Conference is the Dallas Mavericks. And the Dallas Mavericks, they just came off of a 6-game series versus the Los Angeles Clippers. And they really didn't make any moves this offseason. They picked up Josh Richardson. They picked up James Johnson. And Josh Richardson is going to be great for them because they need they need the perimeter defense, and he can also still provide some shooting and some floor spacing. That I wouldn't necessarily say they desperately needed, but they could definitely use. I don't know if Porzingis is going to be back for the start of the season. So if he's not, because of his meniscus tear, but if he's not, and he comes back around something like February or March, I could see this team going something like something around 43-29 or 42-30, or I wouldn't say they're necessarily going to lose that many games, but I could still see I don't see them getting 50 wins or close to 50 wins unless Luka Doncic can just turn into LeBron James or something like that. So yeah, I could see this team at the most getting like 45 wins or something around there. The next team I have is the San Antonio Spurs. Now, in my opinion, the San Antonio Spurs just need to go full rebuild mode. They need to trade DeMar DeRozan. They need to get rid of LaMarcus Aldridge, and they need to get rid of Rudy Gay and Patty Mills and all of these just veteran players, and they just need to get their young core built around DeJounte Murray, Lonnie Walker, Derek White, and Drew Eubanks, Trey Lyles, and Jakob Pertl. Um, that's what the Spurs need to do. But right now, with just the roster with Aldridge and Patty Mills and DeRozan and Rudy Gay, I could see this Spurs team, um, depending on how well they play and what style they play. I feel like they could go something around like 38 and 34 or 36 and 36 or something like that. I don't see them being too elite of a team. They could still sneak into the Western Conference playoffs or get a spot in the play-in tournament, but I don't see them getting farther than a first round exit. The next team I have in the Western Conference is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, the Oklahoma City Thunder obviously traded Chris Paul, and they got Kelly Oubre back, but they traded Kelly Oubre to the Warriors, and I'm not really sure who they got out of that trade, but they now have Al Horford, and so I feel like the Thunder are just at the time where it's time to rebuild it. It's time to start over. It's time to rebuild again. Um, they have a good young core, and with guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Lou Dort, Darius Bazley, Hamidou Diallo, Terrence Ferguson, um, and all of those guys. And so um, it's just a time for the Thunder to start rebuilding and start all the way over and all of that. So I could see the Thunder going something like 26 and 46, or I could see them going like 30 and 42 or something like that, because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is only going to continue to get better, and so he's going to start to play more winning basketball and stuff like that. So I don't see the Thunder losing, a ridiculous amount of games, but I don't see them winning enough games to make the Western Conference playoffs or the play-in tournament. The next team I have is the Denver Nuggets, and this Nuggets team just came from a Western Conference Finals run where they got beat in 5 games by the Lakers, and they famously came back from down 3-1 against the heavily favored Clippers. When I say heavily favored, I mean literally almost everybody was claiming that Clippers team was going to win the championship. Now, I wasn't, but almost every analyst and even some players were saying the Clippers are going to come out of the West and win the championship. But the Denver Nuggets shut all of that down, and they really just did it through playing through Jamal Murray and exposing the Clippers' lack of big man and playing through Nikola Jokic. The Clippers lost Jeremy Grant. I mean, the Clippers. The Nuggets, they lost Jeremy Grant this offseason to the Detroit Pistons, which I don't understand what Jeremy Grant is necessarily doing, considering that he went from a winning situation to a situation that is in absolute turmoil. I guess he just wanted the money. He signed for 3 years, $60 million. So I'm guessing he just wanted the money. But the Nuggets, they still have a great young core. While their players are still relatively young, they have Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, obviously, but they also have Michael Porter Jr., who's going to get more minutes thanks to the loss of Jeremy Grant. They have Bol. They still have Gary Harris and Monte Morris. They re-signed Paul Millsap. They also lost Mason Plumlee, who provided some nice big man depth off the bench. But they picked up JaMychal Green this offseason. They picked up R.J. Hampton in the draft. So this Nuggets team, I could see this Nuggets team going something like 47 and 25, or I could see them going something like, 46 and 26 or something like that, or maybe even pushing 50 wins or going like 49 and 23 or something like that. So, I can see this Nuggets team, having a real shot of getting back to that Western Conference Finals this season. Next team I have in the Western Conference is the Portland Trailblazers. Now, the Portland Trailblazers made a much-needed addition with the addition of Robert Covington this offseason. They still have Nasir Little. They picked up Derrick Jones Jr. as well. Picked up Harry Giles. They got Enes Kanter back after not having him for a season. Rodney Hood is going to be coming back from his torn Achilles. They re-signed Carmelo Anthony, and they still have Yusuf Nurkic. They lost Hassan Whiteside, but that's fine because, like I said, they picked up Enes Kanter, who doesn't provide the defense that Whiteside does, but he definitely provides the offense which is something that the Nuggets needed, especially from a big man. Now the Nuggets. Why I say Nuggets? The Trailblazers. The Trailblazers needed. Now the Trailblazers definitely disappointed everybody last season. They barely snuck into the playoffs. They needed to go into a play-in tournament against the Grizzlies, my favorite team, to even get to the playoffs. They did take the Lakers to 5 games, which isn't necessarily that good, but I feel like he'll come back better. I feel like they'll come back better this season. They still have Zach Collins as well. I forgot to mention him. And Gary Trent Jr. Definitely developed, and he played really well in the bubble. Same for Anthony Simons. And like I said, they picked up Robert Covington and Derrick Jones Jr. And Rodney Hood is going to be coming back. So I could see this Blazers team going something like 45-27 or 46-26 or something like that, because Damian Lillard played absolutely out of his mind, and he's probably going to carry that momentum into this season. Carmelo Anthony is finally willing to take a lesser role in the offense and on the team and all of that stuff. Yusuf Nurkic, he played pretty good in the bubble, and like I said, they picked up and Robert Covington is going to be a huge addition for this team. They needed the wing defense. And they needed the size, because the one thing they were missing on the wing in terms of defense is size, because Gary Trent Jr., yes, is a good defender, but he's only about 6'4", 6'5", and most of the time in the Blazers lineups, he would be playing small forward, and that is a problem in terms of size when defending guys like LeBron James and, all those other guys that are in the Western Conference. And so, but yeah, I can see that Blazers team being pretty good. They're obviously going to make the playoffs, in my opinion. I would hope so. And so, yeah, next team I have in the Western Conference is the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz just came off of blowing a 3-1 lead to the Denver Nuggets in the first round of last year's playoffs, but they were missing Bogdanovich due to injury in the bubble, and so guys like Jordan Clarkson and Joe Ingles and them had to step up. But now this Utah Jazz team is not looking too bad. They still have Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. They're going to be getting Bogdanovich back. They still have Mike Conley and Jordan Clarkson and Joe Ingles. They still have Royce O'Neal. They got Derek Favors back after losing him for one season. They drafted Udoka Azubuike, who, if they can develop him right, can be a great defensive piece for their team coming off the bench, backing up Rudy Gobert. And so I could see the Jazz team going something around the Blazers record, about 45-27 or 46-26, just based off of their current situation. Next team I have in the Western Conference is the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, the Timberwolves, they obviously have who I think they should build the team around. They have 3 players who I think they should build the team around in D'Angelo Russell, Karl Anthony Towns, and Anthony Edwards. They picked up Ricky Rubio. They got him back after not having him for, I think, like 3 seasons. And they have Malik Beasley, who is going through a lot of drama off the court right now, but is still who still can be a 15 point per game scorer for them. They have Jared Culver, who can play good on the wing for them. They have Juancho Hernan Gomez. They have all the, they have some nice complementary pieces, but considering how tough the Western Conference is, I don't see the Timberwolves making a serious playoff push for quite some time until they get some more good pieces around that 3-headed monster. If Anthony Edwards develops at least, of him, D'Angelo Russell, and Karl Anthony Towns. So I could see the Timberwolves going something like 27-45 or 30-42 or something like that. But I don't really see them doing much more than that. And they may even lose more games than I just said, because the Western Conference, like I said, is very tough. The next team I have in the Western Conference is the New Orleans Pelicans. Now, the New Orleans Pelicans, obviously, and hopefully, Zion Williamson is not going to be on a minutes restriction because of injuries, and he can play some full, and he can play like 30, over 30 minutes a game and all that stuff. They still have Lonzo Ball, which despite how disappointing he's been, considering his expectations, is still a great, a great facilitator, good defender, and all that stuff. They have the most improved player of the year in Brandon Ingram. They still have J.J. Redick, Jackson Hayes. They picked up Steven Adams from the Thunder. They got Eric Bledsoe in the Drew Holiday trade. They still have Josh Hart, and they still have Nickeil Alexander-Walker and all of those guys. So I could see the Pelicans definitely making the playoffs. Maybe at the worst they'll be the ninth or 10th seed, and they'll be in the play-in tournament. But I could see this Pelicans team going something, but winning games between 36 and 42, something like that. They'll win between 36 and 42 games. Next team I have in the Western Conference is the Phoenix Suns. Now the Phoenix Suns obviously made a splash this offseason. Shout out to Chris Move for me saying making a splash, and you know they made a splash this offseason getting Chris Paul, and obviously the Suns, they have a lot of high expectations because of their performance in the bubble. As we know, they obviously went 8-0 in the bubble. It wasn't enough to get them into the playoffs, but that progression is definitely a positive sign for their future. Like I said, they picked up Chris Paul this offseason. They've got Devin Booker still, DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges. They still have Dario Saric. They picked up Chuck Diallo. Um, they picked up Etuan Moore, who can provide some floor spacing for them. They still have Frank Kaminsky. They picked up Jay Crowder, who is going to provide the wing defense that if he wasn't there, this team would desperately need. And so I could see the Suns team winning like 43 games, maybe 40, but somewhere between 40 and 43 games. And so, yeah, that's where I have the Suns right now. The next team I have in the Western Conference is the Sacramento Kings, and the Sacramento Kings are in a bit of a situation. Buddy Hield wants out, um, and they really didn't do much this offseason to make themselves better. They really didn't do much this offseason to make themselves better. De'Aaron Fox, really the only significant thing they did was sign De'Aaron Fox to a max extension, but that is just about it. They also picked up Hassan Whiteside, so he can play center for them and give them some good minutes and stuff in a starting role or coming off the bench or whatever they're going to have him doing. But the Kings are not. I feel like they're not going to necessarily be a playoff team this year. I feel like they're going to end up somewhere between 30 and 33 wins or something like that. And maybe that's a little bit too high. Maybe that's a little bit too high for the Kings, but I could see them winning somewhere between 30 and 33 games, or at the worst, 23 game, 23 to 26 games or something like that. But they're not going to be absolutely horrible. And the last team I have for the Western Conference is my favorite team, the Memphis Grizzlies. And the Grizzlies, they're looking to be going in the right direction. They're going to be getting Jaren Jackson Jr. back from his injury. They have obviously one of the most exciting and promising up and coming young players in John Morant. They still have Jonas Valanciunas. Grayson Allen played really well in the bubble. They still have Brandon Clark and Dylan Brooks, and Justice Winslow is going to be coming back from his injury. They have Jonte Porter now, so we really don't even need Gorgie Dane. If we're going to have Jonte Porter now, we still have Kyle Anderson. They have Tyus Jones coming back from his injury because he didn't really play in the playoffs. They signed DeAnthony Melton to an extension. And you may be saying all these guys are not really popular and all that stuff, but if you watch NBA basketball and you're a Grizzlies fan and all of that stuff, you would know that these guys are big time players for us. So it's a pretty good game right here going on that y'all are watching. But yeah, so and we got a crap ton of new rookies. Guys like Desmond Bain and Jaleel Tripp and Sean McDermott and Xavier Tillman and all those guys. We got a crap ton of new rookies. And Jonte Porter is a rookie because he didn't play any last season. I could see my Grizzlies team going somewhere around 35 and 37 or 38 and 34. That's really what I have for them, and they can make the Western Conference play-in tournament. And so, yeah, that's where I have the Grizzlies going. Now, like I said, I skipped a couple teams in the Eastern Conference. I skipped the Miami Heat and the Toronto Raptors. And so, the Heat, they just came off probably one of the most surprising finals runs that we've seen in recent memory. Probably since the 2012 Dallas Mavericks, or 2011 Dallas Mavericks, my bad. But they really aren't going anywhere. I feel like the Heat are really not going to go anywhere. They still have all the guys from last year. They did lose Jay Crowder though, which is big because he provided some veteran presence. But they did pick up Avery Bradley. They picked up Precious Achiuwa in the draft. They now have Mo Harkless. And they still have all the guys from last year: Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, Bam, Andre Iguodala, Goran Dragic, Duncan Robinson, Kendrick Nunn. They're still going to have Udonis Haslem in the locker room, Myers Leonard, Kelly Olynyk, and this team is gonna be, I feel like this team is the Heat might reach, you know, the Heat are gonna be somewhere between 45 and 50 wins. 45 and 50 wins. That's where I have the Heat right now. I can't really give them an exact record, but I can see the Heat being somewhere between 45 and 50 wins. And the last team in the NBA is that I have is the Toronto Raptors. Now the Toronto Raptors, they lost Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol, which is bad for them. But they still have Kyle Lowry. They re-signed Fred VanVleet. They still have Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby and Terrence Davis. And they can finally and now Chris Boucher he showed some promise last season, so they can they can try and develop him more. They picked up Alex Len and Aaron Baines, so I don't see this Raptors team really going anywhere just because of their leadership and their amazing coaching. So I can see them going something around. I can see them winning around 42 and 45 games, or maybe like 42 and 47 games, or something like that. That's really where I have the Toronto Raptors right now. So now, like I said, making the NBA playoffs from each conference, I see the Lakers. In the Western Conference, I see the Lakers, Warriors, Rockets, Clippers, Mavericks, Nuggets, Trailblazers, and Jazz making the finals. And the Trailblazers also. Those are the 8 teams I have making it from the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference. At the Miami Heat, the Raptors, the Bucks, the Sixers, the Nets, the Wizards, the Pacers, and the Orlando Magic making it in the Eastern Conference. Now, who I have coming out of each respective conference, um, I mean, this is pretty much a given. I see the Lakers coming out of the Western Conference in the Eastern and making it to the finals. In the Eastern Conference, it's gonna be tough. It's really gonna be tough. It is really going to just be a tough battle. I could really see it going anybody's way in the Eastern Conf. But right now, if I were to pick somebody right now, it would have to be between the Heat and the Nets. Now I cannot make a decision between those two teams right now, but I really just see it being between the Heat and the Nets. And maybe and the Celtics. I'll say the Celtics too. And so, um, you know, the Celtics, Heat, or the Nets coming out of the East. I can't decide right now. Y'all can decide that in the comments, or y'all can just put whoever y'all think in the comments. But I see the Lakers coming out of the West with their most competition probably being the Clippers, and honestly, the Clippers and the and maybe I don't know, maybe really the Clippers, and that's about it. And maybe the Mavericks or somebody like that, or really anybody. But I see the Lakers coming out of the West, and in the East, I can't really pick between the Celtics, Heat, or the Nets. But yeah. And winning the NBA Finals, whoever makes it out of the East, I still have the Lakers repeating as champions. I know that's a lot to expect of them. You know, LeBron is getting older and all that stuff. But I don't really see LeBron declining because he hasn't really shown any signs of him declining. So I can see the Lakers definitely repeating as NBA champions. And yeah, guys, those are my predictions for the upcoming 2021 NBA season. Leave your thoughts and predictions down in the comments, or hit me up on my social medias. They're down below in the description. I hope you guys definitely enjoyed. Remember to like and share this this stream on all of your social medias. And yeah, guys, I will see you guys either tomorrow or Monday.